Yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV. Finally back with another live Q&A. And this one's going to be slightly special in that, as you'll have seen in the title of this Q&A, I'm going to be taking a bit of a deep dive into what went on the Dutch island of Texel on Saturday, where I just participated in the world's biggest catamaran race. Yes, before we dive into that, I've got some news just in, which you may or may not have already seen. But the most exciting bit of news that I can present at this time is I have just launched an easier way to get on the Global Speed Stick leaderboard. Okay, so up until now, if you wanted to get on the leaderboard, you had to send me an email with your results, which I think is a pretty old-fashioned and clanky way of doing such a thing. So what I've done is I've set up, still a bit clanky, I'll grant you that, but what I've just done is I've set up a Facebook page called the Global Speed Stick Challenge. And what you can do is you just put your results as a, what would you call it, a post on there, and then your results will be put on the Speed Stick leaderboard. The leaderboard, incidentally, if you didn't know, is updated every Monday. So there you go, reducing the clankiness. All right, so I'd just like to say hello specifically to Boris, who's straight in with a super chat, keeping the Q&A ad free. Yes, if you don't like ads in your Q&A, then do feel free to use the super chat, keeping the Q&A ad free, as is Justin in Texas. Great to have everybody on board already. Yes, so if it's all right with you guys in the live chat, I'm going to dive into the Texel debrief before going into the live chat to answer questions, unless you've got to get away. If you've asked a question in the live chat and your clock is ticking because you've got to go and do something important, do let me know and I will break away. But I'd like to cover the main topic first, if that's all right with you. Thank you very much. All right, smashing. Okay, so yeah, if you hadn't seen it, yeah. Oh, and thanks very much to Hussein in there with a super, I believe that's a super sticker rather than super chat. Thank you very much, Hussein in Egypt. So first thing, I'm going to try to fire through this pretty quickly as well to keep it interesting. You may be wondering, why did I end up sailing the biggest catamaran in the race in the world on a Nacra 450? The Nacra 450, incidentally, it only went on sale yesterday. So before then, it was just kind of in the marketing, and we were actually there to do a photo shoot and videos to help promote the boat and the new Inter 20 while I was there. So I was very lucky to be given the opportunity to sail that boat, but it was probably one of the smallest boats in the fleet, and certainly with the smallest mainsail in the fleet. So you may be thinking, was that your choice or Nacra's choice? It was kind of a joint choice that I would sail that boat in the race. But what I thought is, if I sail a boat that isn't quite as quick, so not a Formula 18, not a Hobie 16, I was there on the invitation of Nacra, that probably wouldn't have gone down so well. But if I chose a slightly less quick boat, it put me more into the thick of it. If you think of it, start the front end of the fleet, the really fast boats, they'll be spread out and not very many. The back of the fleet, the slowest boats, again, spread out and not very many. Whereas in the middle, that is where there is the most action. And that is definitely where I wanted to be, to get the best possible exciting video from that event, which I think, I'm very happy with how the video came out. So I think that was a success. So that is why the 450. The configuration that I chose for the boat was, as you will have seen if you watch the video, mainsail and spinnaker. Interesting, because it does have an optional rolling jib as well. But I was already getting absolutely hammered with my rating for carrying a spinnaker. So my rating, I think, was 117, whereas the rating for a Hobie 16 was 118. So the Hobie 16 actually slower on paper than me in my very small boat, because I had a spinnaker. If I'd have carried a jib as well, then I would have been punished down to 112, which is only 12% slower than a Formula 18. And then if you look at the Hobie 14 rating, it's something like 133, so much slower. And you can look at the differences in the ratings as percentages that you have to beat the next boat by of the different rating. So between me, 117, Hobie 14, which is 130, let's say it's 130, that means I'd have to beat the 14 by 13 minutes in 100, which means in a, let's say it was a 300-minute race, that means that I'd nearly have to beat the Hobie 14s by 40 minutes on the water. There we are. And then also the way that the race panned out is that the fastest boats, the foiling boats and the Formula 18s, the 20s, they'd finished before the wind really went downhill. So it was very unlikely to beat the top F18s on handicap. Incidentally, their handicap is 100. There we go. Okay. So, right, boat choice, done. Starting. Yeah, so the start line was massive. But what was nice is this, if this orange line is actually the beach. So here we are. Start line was like this, absolutely massive. It actually, I did sail to the furthest end, the outside end of the start line. And I think it took me about 15 minutes to get there, when it took me 2 minutes to get to the inside. These were big ships on the start line. And my main strategy for the whole thing, with being the smallest boat, is let's not have boats with bigger sails sitting on top of us. So if you imagine wind this direction, so we're going downwind like this, what I didn't want was a load of bigger boats. This is not to scale, by the way, sat here and here. So there's me, wind, true wind in this direction. There's me getting really dirty wind. So I just wanted to keep my wind as clean as possible. So I decided that I wanted to start, to get the scale a bit more accurate, I wanted to start about here. The main pack of fast boats like the Formula 18s, but also a lot of the 14s and 16s started right in here by the ship. So they had a shorter distance to sail to get to this first corner. But I thought, if you get close to that ship, you're going to have a big wind shadow on the start from the ship. So I thought definitely a little bit down the line is the way to go. The other end, then you've got a much bigger distance to cover, because we're starting downwind with the spinnaker up. Any boats, the further we go down the line, the boats further to the right are effectively already that kind of distance in the lead. Because if you were to go, like, not to scale again, but if this is there, and we're sailing downwind, to get to him, I'd have to jibe, sail for a couple of minutes, and then jibe again. So that is why I chose that starting procedure. I really kept an eye on what my position was in the last 5 minutes, making sure I was close to the line, but without being in danger of getting pushed over the line by both the wind and the tide, because the current was pushing this way as well. So I was really cautious not to be pushed over. And then if you saw the video, with about 20 seconds to go, I put the kite up, let it flap. So I was ready. And then when it was time to go, sheeted in as quickly as I could, and off we went. There it was. And then on this downwind leg, this first downwind leg this way, kind of, so let's think, I went kind of this way, jibed in, the wind shifted a bit, so I dropped the spinnaker back up, and then turn this way. That was the kind of strategy on the downwind, just to go as fast as possible on starboard tack. I didn't get out on the trapeze because my spinnaker sheet was extremely slippery, and I didn't feel confident with slippery hands, because the wax off the sheet had gone on to the tiller extension. So I didn't really fancy going out on the trapeze, where I might have lost control for a second, which could have resulted in a capsize, because the wind was pretty strong. Now, one of the problems that I had on the downwind, when you're in a fleet of, let's say, a really variable, what would you say, experience of sailors fleet, is you can find yourself with bigger boats kind of coming past smaller boats even after a certain amount of time. Just like to say thanks very much to Runner Golf for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. Thanks very much. By the way, if you're just joining now, I will be, after I finish going through this debrief, I will be going into the live chat to say hello properly to everyone and answer the questions that are coming in live. So the problem with two problems is, if this is me on my small boat, first problem was boats coming over the top. Now, the problem here is pretty obvious in that they're taking my wind. And sometimes, because they're coming over the top, they then become concerned that if they power their boat up, you may or may not know that when you're sailing with a spinnaker, if you power the boat up, to depower, you need to turn downwind. Now, I'm not going to just go, all right, you're coming over the top, I'm getting out of the way. That isn't in the rules. You don't have to do that. So I'd be holding my course here, bigger boat coming over the top. And because maybe he's getting a bigger gust than me because he's taking my wind, he's getting overpowered, but he can't bear away. So what's he going to do? Let the spinnaker flap to not capsize, which means he's sitting there for a lot longer than you'd want. So getting buried by this dirty wind. So when that was happening, I was trying to bear away, let them go past, and then try to get some height, basically, to get out of the dirty wind, because there was a lot of dirty wind going down this first leg, because that's what happens when you sail in a fleet of 250 catamarans, a lot of them carrying big spinnakers. And then the second problem was basically the same thing but turned around, is when these faster boats were coming through on the leeward side of my boat, it meant then I couldn't bear away if I got a gust. So slightly more precarious, because also I had quite a blind spot on the boat, being single-handed, couldn't always be looking underneath the sail. So that was the other edge of that sword on the downwind leg. So if someone was coming through underneath, when I spot that they're trying to come through, I'd shift my weight inboard a little bit to try to sail a bit deeper. And a lot of the time by doing that, they'd see that basically that space is closed. So they wouldn't power their boat up as much and they would basically stay behind, which I quite like that a lot. So get more inboard means you can sail deeper downwind, maybe a little bit slower, but still you can maintain the speed pretty well. Get deeper. They can't get down here because they'll lose all their speed if they go down there. And it means it's a bit safer to get down there. Okay, I've written some notes here that are on my second screen. So that's downwind tactics. Round the corners. So one of my favorite bits of the whole race was this corner at the top, because it was like, as we went down here, this was, I think it was about 40 minutes coming down here. And then there was some boats, there was like a procession of boats going quite close in. And then I was with the slightly less dense amount of boats which had gone a bit further away from shore because I was flying the spinnaker and not sailing particularly high with it. So what was really nice at this first corner was it was the coming together of all the boats. So there was a load of boats in front, load of boats behind, looked great on the video. And there was also, I'd reckon, hundreds of people stood on the beach, and the water was deep enough that we sailed really close into the beach. So that was an absolutely magic moment. Spinnaker down, turning onto a beam reach, half wind course, and absolutely cranking it. So all of the situations like that, my main strategy was don't let anybody else come between me and the wind, because everybody else had bigger sails and I just wanted to hold on to as much wind as I could. There we go. Here we go. Round. Yeah, so that was round corners, my strategy to keep clean wind. So I would really push up. So if we were coming in to go round this green buoy, which now is red, I would, and like this was the position between me and a bigger boat, I would just keep squeezing up as much as I could. And this went for all of these gate buoys where basically we were heading up to get around the green buoy, heading up as much as possible to get as close to the buoy there. So the faster boat would see, that gap is closed. What can I do? I'll bear away and go beneath. And there I am holding on to my clean wind, because they would probably also be thinking, there's Joe with his little sails. He's not going to be hoovering up so much wind. We'll go underneath him. There we go. And we'll get in the video. I think that is also a big feature. I did feel quite popular at times. So, yeah. All right. So one thing I developed, which I haven't really done much of, this was actually a boat handling technique for maintaining height so I could sail as close to the wind as possible, because with the very high aspect mainsail only, no jib, it meant I could sail very close to the wind. But also the skeg hulls on the 450, very well designed, so they really offer great pointing for a skeg hull boat, which you perhaps wouldn't expect. So how was I optimizing my technique to go higher and maintain the speed? Okay, so around this section of the course, up to like the VC boat, the wind was really good. It was probably blowing about 16 knots. So what I was doing was bringing my weight inboard on the trapeze to let the hull fly And then when the hull started flying a bit higher, I would then be able to head up more and extend out again. So heading up more, extending out again, so my body weight is out as much as possible, and that would bring the hull back down slowly. As it came down, I would go in again, let it fly, and then it would fly the hull. So I would extend out and head up at the same time. So using that motion of the boat like that to get extra drive from the rig, kind of almost like pumping the whole rig to get the boat sailing higher upwind and to give it that boost. So effectively, like illegal propulsion, sheeting in really hard with the sail, or like the windsurfers do, like this pumping that they do a lot to get the boat as close to the wind. So sort of like, and that was really working the boat nicely upwind until, hope everyone's enjoying this. I'm having a great time. This was such a fun race, by the way. I think everybody who can feasibly do this race should do it. It really does show that catamaran sailing is alive and well. All you need to do is know where to look for it. And if you're in Europe, you're a catamaran sailor, this has to be on your calendar of events to go to, because it's such a good vibe. And to be out racing with that many boats is so special. And it really is like, you could be, there was a lot of people there who I spoke to who had, their ambition was to make it round, not worried about the results. And perhaps they'd been learning sailing from the videos, which is nice. And most of it, I think all of them made it. But those guys are competing on the same race course as people who sail in the Olympic Games or in Sail GP and these massive events. So it really is like you can compete against the best in the world in a massive fleet with a really good vibe. There are people to race against at every part of the fleet. So if you're really hot, you do all the competitions, you've got a new jib, then you can race at the front. If you've got a boat from the 1980s, let's say, and you've never helmed on the trapeze and you don't intend to, then you can race in the middle or toward middle or bottom third of the fleet. Still loads of boats there to race against. There was some guys with some very unusual boats who had, I think, probably about 10 beers per crew member on board at the start, quickly run out. But of course, we don't endorse that now, do we? Okay, so upwind, continuing the mode change. As we came further along here, the weather went pretty dirty, like there are big grey clouds, and I'm sure I did see some lightning strikes in the clouds there at times. And when I suppose it was a front went through, then the wind just went, just destroyed the wind. So what I did in that situation was very quickly changed from my trapezing, working the boat to get height and speed technique, very quickly changing to a light wind mode where I was on the boat. I moved forwards, so forwards of the shroud, up by the front beam. And then because I hadn't really sailed the 450 before, I had to find out what technique was required to really make it go. And the technique that really worked to make it go on this super light wind with this horrible chop, which is trying to make the boat bounce all the time, to keep the boat going smoothly and with power and good pointing, was to keep easing the sail, and then the boat would start moving a bit faster. As it moves faster, sheeting in again, and then the boat would go faster with that sheeting. And then as the boat kind of reaches its top speed in the light winds, sheeting out again, and then to avoid stalling, and then sheeting in again. And to determine the angle that I was sailing, Can we do this down here? Yes, we can. There's the mainsail on the boat. The boat came supplied with a lot of wind indicators. So wind indicators on the leech, there was wind indicators here and here. And the ones that I chose to look at to determine the angle, because I did fit the boat with the long streamers from the front, which work well in other classes, but I felt that I wasn't really getting much of a reading from these. So long streamers, kind of like, here's the bridle wires, there's the forestay, and my long streamers were blue. So I had a really long streamer coming off the bridle wire, and then shorter wind indicators on, sorry, off the forestay, and then shorter wind indicators coming off the bridle wires. So these weren't really giving me the information that I wanted. Because I couldn't kind of lock in what they were telling me. So instead, I was using the bottom telltales in the body of the mainsail to determine the angle that I should be steering the boat to. So when I'm using this technique on the mainsail, easing the sail, boat gets going a bit faster, then bringing the sail back in again. I was just watching the bottom telltales, trying to keep those bad boys flying straight back. And then the other telltales, I was pretty much ignoring, because too much looking up means not enough looking forwards. And especially when the wind's light, if you stop looking forwards for too long, you can very easily find yourself too close to the wind, meaning that you stall and you stop, and it's very difficult to get the boat moving again. Okay, so that was that light wind mode change. And then I think when we got down to here somewhere, the wind did start coming up a bit. So then the mode changed the other way to go from this light wind mode. So the next sort of change from there, from sitting up by the front beam, was then to sit behind the shroud. And that's more of a practical place to sit if you think that you could start trapezing sometime soon. Because if you're still up forwards of the shroud, it's quite awkward to get back on the boat enough to get out on the trapeze. Yeah, so mode changes for wind dropping, wind increasing. So that can really make a difference to your racing when you are out there on the course. React quickly. Don't just assume that the wind is doing the same thing that it was doing before, especially if it doesn't feel like it's doing the same thing that it was doing before. All right. So, okay. And by the way, I am coming on to everybody's questions in the live chat, just debriefing this at this time. So, yeah, then we had just, if you should watch the video, if you haven't seen the video, it's a long video. You could put it on kind of like if you had a fish tank in your room, in your living room, use the video in the same way. Along the bottom here, we had this weird bit of wind giving us a really good 5 minutes of beam reaching. Amazing. And then as soon as I noticed that wind had gone, then it was kite up, ready for this downwind, quite light wind downwind to the finish line. And as I was approaching the finish line, a lot of the other boats, in fact, I would say all of the other boats approaching the finish line were coming in to the finish. So I think the wind is still in this direction. We're coming into the finish, sailing really low and slowly. Really low and slowly. And when you're sailing in that mode, like a low, slow mode, because you don't want to jibe again, you don't have any options. Your only option is that's where we're going. If another boat is sailing over the top of you, what can you do? You can sail a bit higher, but then you'll miss your objective. Yeah, so the low, slow, I thought, I'm not going out like that. I thought, especially for the video as well, I thought, let's heat it up. So sailed a bit higher, got out on the trapeze, sailed really fast, and actually by doing that, managed to take down quite a few boats right on the finish, which is very satisfying as well. Nice to finish on a high note. And the guys from Nacra watching from the beach, I think they were quite pleased to see their little boat dominating like that at the end of the race. So that was very nice as well. Yeah, so that was kind of like a very brief report on how I went about getting around the island of Texel. And then just a few other things that came into it, which might be of interest, especially if you're looking at doing maybe exactly the same event next year, which you should. The first thing was, what was my choice of outfit to wear? Because you don't know how long you're going to be out there. Could have been 6 or 7 hours. I'm quite grateful I was only 4 hours 37 minutes, but could have been a long time. So I had packed a semi-dry suit because I thought there is not a chance that I am going to be sat on the boat getting cold. But the semi-dry suit seemed to be overkill. The air temperature was 16 degrees approximate centigrade, or 61 degrees Fahrenheit. The water temperature was the same, in fact. This is what I just did some research before we started. And then, of course, there was the element of wind chill to take into it. So what did I wear? And by the way, this is not an advert for Forward Whip, but it just happens to be the sailing gear that I use. I used the Forward Whip Long John. This is a 3mm high quality Swiss design, 90% rubber. Long John with really good padding on the knees. So that was the base. And then, sorry, dropped one. For the ultimate heat, the Forward Whip, what's it called? I don't know what it's called, but it's like a hot top. And this is the thicker one, which has got like a real carpeted inside. This is really warm. So that's a warm combination. And then for the wind chill, the spray top on top, I learned to use the spray top the hard way a couple of years ago, where I got so cold with wind chill. Spray top, great choice. And then over the top of it all, and thanks to Ivan for sending me this from the Cayman Islands. This was I think this is really important. UV protection from Dragon Bay Sailing and Water Sports Club in the Cayman Islands. But this has got a really good sort of neck protection and hood to keep the sun off. Even on a cloudy day, exposure could get you. So this was a good choice. And then the trapeze harness of choice, I had said that I was going to take a different one, but I took the lightweight Forward Whip trapeze harness, because this one, after testing all of the Forward Whip trapeze harnesses, this one fits so much better. And that is what you want in a harness when you're going to be in the saddle for some time. Also, this one is fitted with the quick release trapeze hook, which I haven't got for the other harnesses. So I thought this is a good safety point. So there we go. That was clothing. I am going to be jumping into the live chat soon. Almost there. nutrition. How do you fuel yourself for such an event, especially single-handed? Well, in my buoyancy aid pocket, I had a cake in a packet. I had a chocolate croissant in a packet. Yeah, there's a bit of a theme here. And then I had a banana. And the cake and the chocolate croissant I ate actually while I was on the trapeze going upwind. So just pulled it out, used my teeth to help open it. And there we are. But then to eat the banana, I had to wait until the wind went light. So that was how I kept going for the event. Made sure to have a really big dinner the night before as well. So lots of carbohydrate the night before. All right, moving on. So it's been about 30 minutes on this. Actually, drinking water was an issue because I should have taken a bottle. Going to learn from this, that like a bike bottle where you just grab it and you can drink it, or better still, a Camelback type thing where you just have the pipe going over your shoulder, you put it in your mouth, you're drinking. But I had to take a lid off, which when you're single-handed, especially if you're flying a spinnaker as well, is very tricky. Yes, so some elements there, but all seemed to work well. I didn't feel like dehydrated or hungry when I finished. I think it worked out pretty well. And then final one, because this is people are interested in this and they've been asking, how did I manage to make the cameras go for nearly 5 hours? All right, so you'll have seen I had the GoPro Max 2. This was mounted on the bowsprit, and because I didn't have a jib, it made it a bit easier. So I had that one mounted there, and basically like 3 minutes before the start, I turned it on and I set it so it wasn't on the highest quality. And I did that with the head cam as well. I set it all to 1080 rather than 4K, or this one, I like to use at 8K. This is the only 360 camera that does true 8K. So they say. Yeah, so I set it to a lower quality so that it's the battery that is going to go before the SD card. So that is how this was filming for, I think, 70 minutes before the battery went. And I wanted it filming at the start because I thought that is where the action is going to be. Then I had the custom built Joyrider camera hat where I've just got the fitting on the peak there, bolted through to a carbon fiber plate on the inside because we don't want to add weight to the hat, do we? Oh no. Yeah, everything was tied on as well. So I had the GoPro 12 on the hat, again set to 1080, 24 frames per second to use less battery. And then for the audio, I used the Instamic. These are definitely the best. The Instamic in basically a headband that I have round the neck and under the rash vest. So that's how we get rid of the wind noise. And the battery in the Instamic lasted for exactly the same amount of time as the race. So well done to Instamic for having a great battery there. And final one, would I go again? Absolutely, 100%. I can't believe that I did it last 20 years ago. So there we go. All right. So thanks for bearing with me for the debrief. I just wanted to get that debriefed. So into the live chat. And so kicking off the live chat, I hope everyone's still here. Justin in Texas. You can see Justin in action, by the way, on Joyrider Worldwide, which which is the new channel. I won't go into details now because I think everyone's been waiting for me to get into the live chat. So here I am in the live chat. All right, Justin says, my main keeps back winding no matter how far I move the jib traveller 12 to 18 knots. Main traveller central, more downhaul, adjust the jib clue or something else. Could be all of those things, Justin. I would say. So let's have a look. All right, just tidying up a bit first. Okay, so yeah, what I'm just thinking about this question. So backwinding of the mainsail. So with the main pulled in as tight as possible and the jib traveled out but pulled in tight, this is the kind of shape that is happening to backwind the mainsail. So what we can see is going to be occurring is the wind is coming off the jib and then hitting the back of the mainsail square rather than running parallel alongside it, which is what we're trying to achieve. So I would say first thing to look at is the jib setup. So if this is our jib, oh gosh, I feel like I'm kind of rushing now to make up for the amount of time I spent on the debrief. But if this is the mast, this is the jib. If we have too much tension in the leech of the jib, what that does is it puts, so if we have a lot of tension in the leech, we're going to get a very curved sail. If we have less tension in the leech, leech is the back edge of the sail, by the way, for those who aren't down with the lingo. If we have a tighter, more tension in the foot and less in the leech, then what we'll get is the sail will be kind of flat at the bottom and then higher up. So this is now higher up and higher up still, higher up. So it's kind of going out like the wing of a bird as we get higher up. And there's a reason why birds have wings that look like that. It's because they're extremely efficient. So what we're trying to avoid is having too much tension in the leech of the jib. Two ways that we can alter it. One is to change the tack position on the jib. So if you move the tack lower down on the adjuster for the jib, then that is going to open the leech of the sail because we're bringing the sail lower down. So the jib sheets are going to pull back more rather than down. I hope everybody's with me so far on that. So that is if we're going to move the tack down. But the other way that we can do it is we can, here we go, is on the clue, the back bottom corner of the jib, we have a corner looks like this. It's got a number of holes in it. Would usually be 5, but here we've just got it with 3. If we attach the jib sheets to the higher up hole, it's going to put more tension in the leech. If we put it in the lower down hole, it's going to put more tension in the foot, which is going to open the leech up. So what I would experiment with is with the jib sheet in the middle hole. This is what we're really looking for. Get the tack of the jib as low down as possible, but so that it's still quite an effort to pull it in until you can't pull it in anymore, until the blocks of the jib are touching. If it's too easy to pull it in until the blocks are touching and it doesn't feel like you've got any tension in the jib at all, then that's because it's too low on the tack. So move it up on the tack and then move it down on the clue and then try pulling it in and see the difference there. So I would say that is the main thing. Also, if the jib is backwinding, more downhaul on the mainsail is going to help, because as we pull more downhaul on the mainsail, it flattens the mainsail, which means that the shape that we're getting is going to be more flat, which means this wind coming off the jib is less likely to backwind the main. There you go, Justin. Hope that helps. Okay, continuing. We have SA 1510 on board from the Baltic Sea. I hope that to get sailing with this 1990s Hobie 16. 3 things I'd like to fix or replace. How long is a tiller? The current tiller stick is 1.2 meters, too short. Yeah, 220 for a Hobie 16. 2 meters 20. But if you're buying a length of tube, I would buy a 2 meter 50 length of tube to start with. See how that is for you, because if you're extremely tall, you might find that 220 might even feel a little bit short. But the standard tiller extension on a 16, 220. What kind of rope to use for the downhaul? This one doesn't have a fancy 6-to-1. All right, so for the downhaul, I would use either a 5 or 6 millimeter. I haven't got any rope here, have I? No, a 5 or 6 millimeter rope with a hard wearing cover on it, which is nice in the hands. There's no need to have a Dyneema core, so it can have a polyester core. So who does the rope called XL? I think it's Marlow ropes. So the Marlow XL Pro 5 millimeters, or if you want something a bit easier to handle in your hands, 6 millimeters is nice, but I would go with the 5. How does one get proper replacement battens for the jib? Should one go for original parts? Yes, I would say if you can get original battens for the sails, especially on a Hobie 16, because the 16 is a very quirky design. If you put different battens in, like ones which are either stiffer or softer, then the boat isn't going to feel the same. If the battens are too stiff, your sail is going to end up very flat. If your battens are too soft, then you're really going to get this problem. So what we definitely don't want is battens that are softer than the original ones. So if you can track down some original jib battens, then that is what you want. All right. Continuing, Boris, greetings from Florida. I hope you did well in Texel. Yes, my results on the 450 was in reverse order of glamour. Overall on corrected time, 46th position. At 250, not bad. Quite happy with that. In the single-handed fleet on corrected time, where I was up against these Hobie 14s, very difficult to beat on handicap. I was 6th position in the single-handed fleet. In the single-handed fleet on the water, first, yes. That's the result we're going with. All right. So Boris says, as you know, I am in the process of installing the rudders. After gel coating the hull, I have the old kind of gudgeons and lower casting won't fit in between the upper and lower gudgeons. All right. So, yeah, I can't remember who I was talking to someone recently. It might have been Kevin, who was out here on holiday, who has just restored a Hobie 16, and he actually took the original gudgeons off the back of the hulls and replaced them with the more modern style of gudgeons. So the back of a hull on a 16, probably, I would say pre-1988. I could be wrong, but this is a guess. Pre-1988, the boat would have a gudgeon there and a gudgeon there where the rudders fit into. These ones are very difficult to eliminate the play from the rudder system. So your rudder is going to want to move forwards and backwards. It's going to want to move side to side. So what I think, I think it was Kevin who was telling me what he did, took those bad boys off, got the new style Hobie gudgeons, lined them up correctly with the outside of the hull, and these are a big plate. It's not right up against the edge of the hull. So he filled in the original holes and then drilled new holes for these gudgeons, using a tap to put the thread into the metal plate on the inside of the hull. So your the hull will have a metal plate in it. So put some threads in there and then put the new gudgeons on, and he said it worked perfectly. Now, all boats might not be built quite the same, so it is. Does it feel a bit extreme to take a drill to your boat to find out if there's a metal plate on the inside? You can always drill a hole in it in the correct position for one of these bolts. And if there's a metal plate, yes, you're a winner. If there's not a metal plate, okay, we'll get some filler, fill the hole, and go back to using the original holes for the original gudgeons. That is what I would look at. All right, Jochen is on board. Greetings from Hamburg, Germany. Great coverage from Texel. Felt almost like taking part myself. Yes, exactly. That was what I was aiming for. Nice. All right, Levi is on board, who says, hello. Nice to have you with us, Levi. All right, Boris continues about the sailing the smallest boat with the smallest sail. From a stoic point of view, we shouldn't wish it were easier. We should wish we were better, always trying to improve. There we are. And on that note, a word from my sponsor. Yes, my wife is my sponsor, who lets me go overseas on these trips. So without my wife's help, I would not be going on these trips. So if you're into a bit of yoga, KarenBennettYoga.com. Check out the website. There are yoga classes on most days of the week online. She's very good at it. That was an ad break. All right, continuing. PT Exclusive is on board. I think that's Kuhn. Nice to have you with us, Kuhn. Nice to see you on Texel. All right, and then we've got Julian Ran in the live chat. Greetings from Canada. I'm having a hard time getting the bow upwind by standing in the tip of the hull. on the Prindle 16 compared to a Hobie 14? Is this normal due to asymmetric hulls? So I'm assuming that you mean, yeah, oh yeah, you've put it in later on after capsizing. Yeah, basically, so standing on the difference between, because both the Prindle 16 and the Hobie 14 both got asymmetric hulls like this, outside flat, inside curved. But the difference is that the Hobie 14 is extremely low volume. So when you stand on the bow, it really sinks that bow down and the boat gets blown round into the wind pretty quickly, even without too much wind. Whereas with a bigger boat like the Prindle 16, which has got significantly more volume, you need to sink that more to get it to go round. And what can be necessary is actually to sit on the bow, drag your legs in the water, and by doing that, dragging your legs in the water, the boat will pivot more because your legs will be acting like a sea anchor. So that is the way to get it to come round. If the wind is strong, you know, like I just made a new capsize writing video, which I wanted to put all the information into one video. And, you know, real world is sometimes it just feels like the boat doesn't want to turn. Does anybody feel this? I think so. So what do? After a while, you just go, oh, let's just go for it anyway. And 9 times out of 10, that is fine. And that's what I do. You know, sometimes if it looks like it's going to take a long time for the boat to come round into the wind, and let's say this, no, that doesn't, does that work if that's on it? No. How do we represent this? All right. Boat is on its side. Wind coming from the camera. So what we want is the wind blowing straight on to the boat. So the boat is totally head to wind, because then that means the wind is getting under the mainsail, under the mast, and that's going to help you to bring it back upright. But what happens a lot of the time is the wind would be blowing onto the top of the trampoline mast here. And the danger there is if we bring the boat up, when the boat comes upright, the wind is going to hit the sail side on, potentially flipping the boat round the other way. So if that is the case, and you can get your boat to about here by sinking the bow, that is okay. You just need to be really on the ball when it comes to, as the boat is coming upright, don't pull it up too quickly if you can avoid it, if it's a really strong wind, and grab hold of the dolphin striker really hard underneath the boat, both people on the boat, to stop it flipping over the other way. There we are. All right, continuing. Levi says, as a still rookie sailor, I definitely have a problem focusing too much on the telltales. If one telltale isn't flying perfectly, it doesn't have near the impact enough to be staring at it and not looking around. Yes. And then he continues, I see to get leech telltales. Yeah, leech telltales are really good for quick reference, as I might have said before, because here we go, let's have a sail. Let's have this one. Because there's a sail. When you look up the sail, you can see the leech telltales immediately, and either they're flying or they're not. And if they're not flying, sails in too tight. If they are all flying, you could probably pull it in a bit more. No, Levi sails the Formula Wave, and on the wave, what all the sailors are looking at is just this bottom telltale, making sure that you never pull the sail in so tight that that one disappears round the back. All different types of boat have got different kind of quirks to them. What they need you to do with the boat to make it perform optimally. So that is the one for the Formula Wave. We're just watching that bottom telltale to keep that bad boy flying. All right, continuing. We've got Moth 1005 on board. How was this year's mast deep? Where the Tiso is. Oh, where the Teso. That's the ferry. Yes. My dad competed this year again on the Nacra 18 Infusion. I don't know what the mast deep is. Hold on. I've got the this is what I used to draw the map earlier. The mast deep. Ah, Mars deep. But what does that mean? So yeah, so it does say on the chart mast deep just there, but I don't know what it means. Sorry about that. So I can't really help you there. But that's where it is, just by the ferry, the Tiso, I think it's pronounced. Yeah, okay. Julian Rand says, what is your preferred catamaran make and model and why? Gosh, that's a big question. There's a lot now, I tell you. So traditionally, favorite catamaran, I want to pick two, please. Maybe those of you who know me, you might even be able to guess what they are. If it is wind in under 20 knots, it's the Tornado. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It's the Tornado. The Tornado, the width of the boat, the power, the way it feels, the simple layout, the lack of dagger boards above the deck, all of that. And it is fantastic. Love the Tornado so much. If it's above 20 knots of wind, the Hobie 16. The Hobie 16 is uncomplicated. You can sail it with a crew who doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience. You can take out people who've never sailed before on a Hobie 16 in 25 knots of wind. Well, if you're a good helm of the boat, of course. You don't want two people without experience out in 25 knots of wind. You might find yourself having a less than ideal experience. But yeah, and the Hobie 16 is so fast in winds of that sort of strength. But the Hobie 16 also has a bit more of a flexibility of sailing it single-handed as well. But having said that, love the Nacra Evolution as a Formula 18 race boat. Yes, it's more complicated than the other boats. It's got the deck sweeper mainsail that makes it more awkward to sail than the Tornado. But if you're competing against other like boats, it's the right boat for the job. I love the Hobie 14. It's like you've hardly got any boat there. So it's so weight responsive. Of course, I'm loving the Nacra 450 Mark II and the 500 and the 570. These boats are so good for purpose. I was saying to some guys at Wildwind Sailing Holidays today, probably the best place to go catamaran sailing in the world. They could replace the whole fleet. You know, there'd be arguments with the 450, the 500 and the 570, and people would have a good time, because with any of these boats, you can sail them as a complete beginner or as an expert, and you will have a good time sailing them. That is this almost like a miracle what Nacra have pulled off with those boats. They've got such a wide range of appeal in terms of sailor ability. There we are. Yeah, and then yeah, I would say that is my answer. Thank you very much. Okay, continuing. All right, RJ Fleet says, hello, RJ Fleet. For me, this race analysis was brilliant and most informative. I've never raced, but I intend to. I'll be watching this again and again. Great stuff. I'm glad that this has hit the spot. And at this stage in the game, we've been going for 1 hour and 5 minutes. If you are finding this Q&A of value or entertainment or both, then the super sticker is a great way of showing that you're into it and helps to keep the Q&A ad free. Sorry, no script. Okay. All right, Mr. Tony KP is on board. Great to have you with us in Ebeltoft, Denmark. All right, so I'm just trying to work out how to pronounce this. Z wave L dioxide or Zwavel dioxide says, you back next year for the round of Texel? Yes. Yeah, I was already talking to the guys from Nacra about coming back to do it again. I think I'd like to do it on the there's just it's this bit here where you could hit the bottom. I'm not so sure about, but other than that, I'd like to come and do it on the new Inter 20, or I'd really like to have a go on the carbon 20, but not the foiling one. I think that would be a bit without the experience of actually getting one of those nailed, or on a Nacra Evolution, mix it up with a fleet. But I'd be quite happy to do it on the 450. We were all lucky on Saturday that the wind played the game largely. If I was sailing the Nacra 450 Round Texel with like maximum 8 knots of wind, it wouldn't have been quite as a fun day out. It would have been a bit slow, I think. Let's be realistic. All right, Boris says, I installed them with the bushings and the pinning to align them, tighten them with pretty good. The play is gone like no play at all. All right, so this is back to the rudder gudgeons. Boris installed the new ones. Nearly no play at all. That is a result. All right. Right, we've got Derek on board. Great greetings from Summerland, British Columbia. Great to have you on board, Derek, and hope that there is something that is helpful in the Q&A today. All right, then we've got Maximal. I'm just going to call you Maximal, if I may. That's quite a difficult name to pronounce. Awesome video around Texel, and congratulations on your placing. Great sailing. Thanks very much. All right, Julian says, thanks so much. Thank you so much. Sense. Yes. Oh, we got Max on board, no longer in Rosenheim, Germany. Max is now residing in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece. What a great idea. And yeah, it's been great conditions this week and last week, I understand. Champagne every day. Yes, the cork has been popped on that bottle of the good stuff. Okay, fair winds to all, says Max. All right, so let's just have a look at the preloaded questions. Yes, so I did have one from Jarjin Camp, who says, how did I manage with the GoPro battery? Oh, yes, so what I didn't mention was the hat cam. You may have noticed in the video, the first half of the video, there's more camera angles involved. Then second half of the video is just head cam, and that's because I'm just turning the camera on and off when I think that there is something interesting happening. And then there was the issue of synchronizing the audio with the microphone. Now, for those of you who do what I do, I thought this was pretty genius level stuff, but what I did was I made sure that I didn't talk to myself unless the camera was rolling. And then every time I turned the camera on, I'd make sure that I spoke loudly and clearly so that the waveforms of the microphone, I could then match up with the waveform on the camera. Easy. And because it was the head cam, if it was a little bit out, so this is perfectly aligned, audio microphone with head cam. If it was a little bit out like that, because you can't see my lips moving, did it really matter? Yes, I got it absolutely perfect on every time though, but it didn't really matter, I don't think. There we go. That is some more how it was done. Okay, so Zwavel Julian says Master Sensei. All right, yeah, thanks for that. Nice. All right, Zwavel Dioxide says next year I am going to participate myself for the Round Texel with a Hobie 16. Hope to finish ahead of you. Yes, I hope you I hope you have a great time, and I will do what I can to be up there nosing towards the front of the fleet. Yes. All right, continuing. This one is this is quite a different question, so we're changing tack here. This is from Matty Vonen 86. Okay, so who says if you were to go on a multi-day catamaran camping expedition, what do you think would be the biggest challenge and how would you prepare for it? This is good. This is a good question. How would you prepare for that? Like, I should have taken more notice, but I had a bit on. But about a month ago here in Vasiliki Lefkas, Greece, there was a party of 3 guys from Switzerland who'd each brought with them a mini cat inflatable catamaran, and they went off on a 5-day expedition on these small inflatable catamarans. How did they survive? Unfortunately, I didn't see them when they got back. They did get back, though. I think that's important to point out. So I would say the most difficult challenges would be just staying fed and comfortable. Comfortable meaning not at risk of exposure or getting cold, but also comfortable in that, you know, if you're wearing a wetsuit for 8 hours every day, getting this sort of like, let's just call it like nappy rash type condition, which could be really uncomfortable. If after day 1 you've got like some sort of rash on your buttocks from being in a damp wetsuit all day, day 2 is going to be miserable. Day 3 is going to be horrible. So get the right cream to put on that sort of condition before it happens. So when it does happen, you know that you've got what it needs. And yeah, it's the sort of thing you wouldn't think about. So I think with the gear I was wearing for Round Texel, that's a good way of looking at your sailing kit, is do it in multiple layers. Like if it was a hot day, then like hot day, no wind, could have ditched the long john, have some like, I think if you had some long swimming trunks on, or swimming shorts, and a rash vest to keep the sun off, that would do it. And then if it got a bit colder, you could put on the spray top. If it was going to be cold for a prolonged period of time, put on the long john, spray top. And having this multi layers of clothing is a really good way of being able to exist in loads of different situations in terms of temperature, I think. Storage of your gear. So you might be taking a tent, some sort of cooking paraphernalia, some dry clothes for wearing when you're camping in the evening, provisions. And I think the best way of doing this on most boats would be to have, if possible, a long waterproof bag, like sausage, like waterproof, very nice, big enough to get everything in, and then to put that bag behind the front beam, because on a lot of boats, that part of the boat is a little bit higher up out of the water. And also it's in quite a neutral position in terms of the balance of the boat. You could put it a little bit further back if having it there means that using the jib sheets isn't working. So that is something to consider. If you could have a bigger bag and have it so it's quite flat, that would be really good. So bigger bag, flat, so it's not as tall. Yeah, that would work well. Of course, water is a consideration. So take as much water as you can, sun protection, big hat, that kind of thing. There we go. And the final final question. This one is from Janotto 6702, who says, thank you so much for your response. Can't remember what I responded to be honest. Please, can you compare the Hobie 16 hull design compared to the new Nacra hull designs in terms of beach wear and tear for beaching and launching? I've read that the Nacra hull is more prone to damage. Perhaps the more performance Nacras, like the Formula 18s or the 20s, they may be more prone to damage because with any symmetrical hull, in fact, we can get rid of him now. Any symmetrical hull where you've got a hull with a profile like that, or the more modern boats with a profile like that, you've got quite a flat section here, which just, if it was to be built so it was as strong as the asymmetric hull, because what we can see with this hull shape, or actually I'll draw it on in a second, or the skeg hull, if we look at the bit which is actually going to touch the bottom, there, or there. So that is the part of the hull which is most at risk. With a flatter underside of the hull, of course, it's going to be more at risk if you put the boat on a rock. And if you put the boat on a rock and then somebody sits on the boat, that's going to dent the hull at the best situation. And at worst, it's going to put a hole in the hull, because you can't have an area as big reinforced as much. Whereas on the asymmetric hull, like on the Hobie or the Prindle, or on a skeg hull, like on the Nacra 450, 500, 570, it's a very small area that needs that reinforcement. So this can be made absolutely, we could say pretty indestructible, because it's so solidly built. So the skeg hull boats, like the Nacra, the 450 actually has a Kevlar rubbing strip along the base of the skeg, which is there to protect the boat from dragging it up and down the beach repeatedly. So I would think that it's really similar. These skeg hull Nacras, very similar to the Hobie 16 or Prindle 16, 15, Hobie 14 in terms of durability for dragging up and down the beach. Now, one exception to this rule is, can we draw this nicely? How would this be? No, it's not the best. Is the Dart 18, Dart 15. Now, these boats have got the Skeg hull, but the Skeg on a Dart 18, Dart 15 isn't particularly reinforced, because these boats are designed to be a lightweight racing boat, albeit very simple, but still designed for racing. So they're lightweight. So a Dart 18 or 15, you would definitely not want to be dragging up and down the beach like that, because you won't have much hull left. I used to sail a Dart 18 when I was young and foolish, and I hung out with a load of Hobie 16 sailors, the Felixstowe Fat Boys, and I treated my Dart 18 like how they treated their Hobie 16. And let's just say my Dart 18 wasn't looking too pretty at the end of the summer season. There we go. All right, so there we are. Hope that helps. Okay, so Maximal says, is there any chance to book a holiday at Wildwind? Wildwind is the sailing holiday place where most of the videos on Joyrider TV are coming from. Champagne conditions, great fleet of boats, lovely people, relaxed vibes, really, really nice. And you know that I'm not just saying that because I've been here for over 30 years now. And if I didn't think it was pretty much perfect, I might have gone somewhere else. So there we go. Any chance to book a holiday after October the 3rd? Or is the season over by then? No, I'm pretty sure that, hold on, let's get the calendar up. October 3rd. So the 3rd is a Saturday, which means that I believe that Wildwind would be open for 1 week after the 3rd. So it would be closing. Last day would be the 11th of October. But do check the website to check that, to make sure that information is accurate. So there we go. Thank you very much to everybody who is still on board after an hour and 22 minutes of talking about catamaran sailing. If you want to go for a deeper dive into catamaran sailing, then do check out the Joyrider Classroom series. You'll find a link to it in the video description below. And it is a series of 120 videos divided up into 18 modules that take you through all of catamaran sailing step by step in the classroom environment. Good to really deepen your knowledge in the sport of catamaran sailing. Yeah, so there we go. Have a great weekend. We have, it's Wednesday. I usually do this on a Friday. Have a great rest of the week. Hope this has broken the week up nicely for you. I used to like the Wednesday night racing series, especially for that. Yeah, get on the speed stick. There'll be I forgot my schedule of videos. No. Yeah, there'll be more videos coming from Holland and from Greece and from Australia in the coming week or so. A special Show Us Your Cat episode coming on Sunday from these weird and wonderful boats that were racing around the island. So check that one out. Be out on Sunday. Thank you very much. And I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. No, that's too much. No, thank you.